Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Summers, and welcome to the audio edition of Mind, Body, Soul, a show about your mental, physical, and spiritual wellness. Well, I have with me today John Foley, who's going to talk about Metta matters. Welcome, John Foley.
Thanks, Gary. I appreciate you having me on.
When I get a call from Miranda Squires saying I should interview you because you do some wonderful work, yeah, I certainly stand up and take notice. So John, just tell us about what you do and what listeners can expect to hear from you today.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a mindfulness and meditation instructor, and I also offer courses, workshops, seminars to businesses and individuals, organizations, and help them bring more positivity into their organizations, their workspaces, and lives. And today I'm going to be discussing metta and mindfulness.
So I'm intrigued. Many people have probably heard the word meta. The title of this interview is Metta Matters. Can you explain the concept of meta and why it is a focus of your work?
Sure. So metta comes from the Indian language Pali and is often translated as loving kindness. Uh, it is a feeling of friendliness or amicable feeling or benevolent feeling towards others that is not dependent on the changing factors of the object that is being felt towards. Unconditional love, I guess we could say. Um, Whereas, often what is represented as love here in our Western culture is actually attachment. I love my car, or I love, some food or something, but it's actually a connection to that thing. And if that thing changes, if your car is in an accident or the food doesn't taste well, then the good feeling towards it disappears rather quickly. And unfortunately, that translates into our relationships with friends, family, and coworkers as well. So this there are several key reasons why metta practice is a focus of what I try to do. And the first and foremost is that I have found when people do a metta meditation, they can often have the feeling in their heart almost immediately. That love, that deeper heart connection, they can feel it. And that tangible aspect of the meditation then translates in them to being able to have the drive and perseverance to maintain a meditation or mindfulness practice. Uh, the other reason that metta is a focus of my work um, is the myriad of benefits that come as the heart opens. And these include finding it easier to fall asleep, resting more comfortably, waking up more refreshed and with a better feeling in the morning. Uh, you also find if you practice metta meditation or mindfulness that your relationships will improve with friends and family, with coworkers. Um, it's really um, it's really a great way to access the spiritual side, and the benefits are felt, you know, rather quickly and translate into a better experience for the person, the practitioner.
So would you say that meta does not include judgment?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because
Yeah,
that's that,
that's key. Yeah,
that's because that's really where the problem lies, isn't it? Someone says something to you, and all of a sudden you attach either a positive connotation to it or a negative connotation to it.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
if you're a meta practitioner, then you don't judge that. You just say that it lands on you, and you don't have any positive or negative impact on you whatsoever. Would that be an accurate statement?
of course, that's the ideal. And
Yeah.
of course, everyone is still transitioning or practicing or building up to that, yeah, level. But yes, the first thing that you do tend to notice are your judgments when you start a mindfulness practice or a meditation practice. The first thing that you'll start to be aware of are all these little thoughts that creep into your mind and that lay a layer on something else that's not a reality of that thing. It's something, a projection from your mind that you've laid on this. And when you start to recognize that, it opens up a lot of things. Yeah.
I remember I was talking to a bunch of teachers, and we were talking about uh, similar to what you're talking about now, and I said the forecast calls for 30 centimeters of snow tomorrow. Now, I said you can look at that in a positive light, or you can look at it as a negative light. And one of the teachers says, "Oh, we look at it as a positive light because that's a snow day for us. We get a day off." so,
Yeah.
so it depends on what side of the fence you're looking at it. So, John, you mentioned mindfulness, and of course, that is a very common buzzword these days. Can you define that for us and let us know how mindfulness fits in with meta?
Sure, yeah. So mindfulness is present moment awareness. That means paying attention in the present moment purposefully, without adding your judgments or opinions, just allowing what is to be. The practice of mindfulness then allows us to become aware of where we are internally, uh, and how we are interacting with the space around us. Now, as the practice of mindfulness develops, you begin to see more clearly all the areas that you are stuck. What I mean by stuck is, as you mentioned, earlier with our judgments. Um, I don't think you'd speak to any person and they'd say, "I wouldn't want to be more kind, more loving." I even feel I'm a kind and loving individual,
Right?
but quite often we're stuck in spots where we're not exhibiting that. Our language that we're using, the words that how we speak to other people, our behaviors, our actions, they don't represent that deep feeling that we have, that we want to be kind, we want to be loving. Um, and the reason for that is, we're stuck in certain areas. So mindfulness helps to shed a light on those areas where we're coming up short. And once that starts to happen, once you start to recognize your judgments, as I mentioned earlier, like putting layers on things that don't actually exist, um, that really opens up space for those thoughts internally. It gives more space inside our mind to just appreciate the moment for what it is. We don't have to have um, an opinion about everything. We can just let things be as they are and appreciate it for what it is. And that appreciation works both with positive experiences and negative experiences.
I'm glad you mentioned the term opinion because that can create all kinds of problems. And I remember I read a book somewhere and someone said, not everything in life requires your opinion. And your talk of the old cliche, he's very opinionated, and so is meta and mindfulness kind of stripping everything away from the self and getting a true connection with who you are as a person.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. Mindfulness, especially, um, um, I mean that when people go on the spiritual journey, that question of who am I? I mean that's a lifelong,
Yeah,
you know, and in some spiritual, lives long
yeah, sure,
practice
yeah,
of trying to figure out, but certainly that's key. When you say talk about opinions, and the quote you use may have originated with Marcus Aurelius, one of the famous Stoics, and he, had famously said, "Yeah, these things that are beyond your control, don't ask for your opinion. So why bother to have one about it?" And as mass media continues to show us the worst aspects of human nature, uh, it's very hard for us not to say, "Oh, that's so horrible, that's so bad." But at the end of the day, it doesn't help us at all to have that kind of thought repeating, or to focus on the negativity. So being aware of our opinions um, allows us to step outside of that. Yes, I don't need to have an opinion about what's happening right now, even though it is quite a negative event. I don't need to be focused on that. It does nothing. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help anyone that's in that negative event.
I know that I read somewhere Marcus Aurelius said the world doesn't care how upset you get. Because if you have that flat tire or if you're stuck in traffic and you get all upset, and it's up to you, but that's not really doing anything to fix the problem. So mindfulness, I guess, would remove that opinion of, okay, now what do I do with the flat tire? You spend a half an hour running around the car kicking the tires and doing whatever you need to do to get your frustration out, but at the end of that upset time that you have, you still have that flat tire.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So how can
Sorry, Gary, if you don't mind, I'd
oh,
just like to make
oh yes,
one
absolutely, go right ahead.
like you said, I think you used the word removal of opinion, and that is one of the little nuances about mindfulness that people kind of get stuck in. It is not about removing or having anything disappear. Unfortunately, the fact is that we're kind of stuck in our personality, and there's not a lot of that that's going to alter or change in dramatic ways. But what happens is the acceptance comes. So you're accepting that you're stuck in traffic, and then you're accepting of the fact that you're upset that you're stuck in traffic. And then when you allow those things to process, yes, then you're still frustrated, but you're accepting of that and allowing that.
And I think that's the key to everything is because acceptance just happens to be the fifth stage of grief, where you go through all the different stages of grief, and,
Sure.
and finally when you finally come to accept the fact that you have a flat tire, you're stuck in traffic, then you can figure out the best way to deal with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how can mindfulness be developed?
So I think the first thing anyone that's interested in it needs to do is seek out a teacher or a book, a website, a blog, a vlog, someone that's on the path that has had some, uh, you know, time, and by time, usually it's years and years. Like for me, I'm 15 or 16 years now into this, and it I don't want to give the wrong message. It helps almost immediately, and we'll get to that.
I guess you don't want to. Uh, I remember reading a book somewhere that said that it takes 21 days to change a habit. And that's actually a misnomer. It takes anywhere from, I don't know, I think it's 66 days to 280 days to change a habit. And the author of the book said that's irrelevant because it's not the destination that you want to think about. It's the journey that you want to think about. And you're on this continual journey of evolvement and growing as a person. So that might seem daunting to people. Well, I want to be mindful, but it's going to take me a lifetime to be mindful. Well, that's pretty good, really. If you stay on that path of mindfulness for your lifetime, that's a great objective to have, really, isn't it?
Absolutely, but there's few people that may jump on that bandwagon knowing that time frame.
Yeah.
But the truth is that all you need is this moment, and a moment is infinitely small. Uh, so at any time, you can be mindful. You can follow that breath in, follow it as it's released, and be exactly present right now, here. And that's all it takes. And that a commitment to practicing that repeatedly leads to all the benefits that mindfulness can bestow upon a practitioner.
So, John, you talked about you talk to businesses and go in and teach them how to be mindful, how to live in the present moment. Do you also do individual work as well?
Uh, I do, yeah. Usually these things happen like during a retreat where an individual will come and have a one-on-one with a teacher. But I mean, I'm open to discussing this with anyone, and happily do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know as people are listening to this conversation, your contact information is there. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, they can. So, what are the benefits of mindfulness? And I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, and uh, and you also said it takes years to build, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. So just talk about some of the benefits of mindfulness, because I'm sure there are people probably listening to this interview now and would like to understand a little bit more about mindfulness. So what can people gain uh, by being mindful?
Sure. So increasing your capacity for mindfulness, it supports many of the attitudes and contributes to a satisfied life. Being mindful makes it easier to savor the small pleasures that occur in life. And it helps you become fully engaged in your activities. It helps with focus. It creates a greater capacity for you to deal with adverse events. So we often, on the spiritual path or talking about mindfulness and meditation, we talk about the practice, just sitting repeatedly daily. Um, but the reason that is stressed is so that when the adverse effects, those big moments where um, negative emotions are flooding your body, you're already prepared. You're recognizing that. And then you can turn on these techniques that you've been practicing. And that really helps you to navigate those difficult situations in a much better way. We talked about the opinions and the judgments. You're not so caught in them, and you recognize their transient nature, how they dissipate, how they disappear.
How would you obviously someone who has a quick temper uh, tends to jump to conclusions a lot, tends to make a lot of assumptions, uh, because that's one of the more common areas of irrational thinking. What would you say to a person who you're sitting across from now? For instance, if I was sitting across from you with some of those characteristics, I'd say, John, I have a quick temper, and I find that when someone doesn't agree with me, I tend to attack their opinion, thinking that I'm right and they're wrong. Making assumptions is probably one of the it certainly is the most common mental mistake that we all make. So how would you address that issue if you wanted to help someone to be more mindful of the jumping to conclusions, assumptions, uh, that area of life that we all seem to be able to make those assumptions without even thinking about whether we're dealing with the facts, right?
Hmm. So it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about creating space. Um, if that's your nature, it's not going to change, and especially not, with one or session or several sessions of mindfulness or even a couple years of it. But over time, bit by bit, it does change. And countless people that are on the mindfulness meditation or spiritual path have spoken that they themselves don't notice the difference, but people around them start to notice the difference. And so there's two aspects. The first aspect is becoming aware of your thought. So that thought that comes in to say, this person has said something, it goes against what I believe,
Yep.
and it's caused an upset. So recognition of that thought. Um, is key to altering what happens after that thought occurs. So we have a very brief time frame. The thought comes in, it causes an emotional reaction, and then that plays out in the real world as some verbal exchange, or quite possibly, if it's heated enough, a physical exchange.
Mm-hmm.
So mindfulness helps you to widen that gap between the thought and the action or reaction. And that is where we have power. We have power in that second to choose our reaction, to choose how we proceed once we've felt the effect of the other person's action or words.
It's kind of very similar to hitting that pause button, isn't it? Because
Yes, I think that would be a good way
yeah,
to
because
phrase it.
because
Sure.
cognitive behavioral therapists will always say it's not what happens to you that creates the problem, it's how you deal with it. And thank God for that, because if it was the stimulus that caused the reaction, then every single person who got cut off in traffic would be upset with being cut off in traffic. But not everybody is upset. Some people learn how to deal with it much better than other people who blow on the horn, tailgate the person, flip the person off. So as long as people understand that it's not the stimulus or the action that causes the problem, it's how you react to it, and that's where mindfulness comes in. Is that where
Right.
you're leading with
So
this?
yeah, so that's what the first point I made was about becoming aware of the thought. And then as you, I mean, this is still something that's introduced maybe on day one. The second part of it is becoming aware of the sensations in your body, because as you get deeper into this, you realize like that visceral sensation, it actually precedes your cognitive recognition
Sure.
of it. So if you can start to be aware of that sensation happening in your body. So every time if you get a little bit upset, maybe a little bit angry, but you turn inside and you say, okay, I'm feeling angry right now. How does that actually feel in my body? Okay, there's heat. There's heat in my chest, or there's a buzz in my back. I can feel it. When that happens the next time, those feelings that come first will trigger your recognition of, oh, okay, I'm angry. Perhaps this is a good time for me to take a few deep breaths, maybe even disengage from the situation, take a short walk, whatever you work into your life as ways um, to deal with these negative emotions, how to deal with these negative situations. And that, again, speaking about that time frame, once we widen that a little bit, you'll start to see, oh, I'm catching myself. Oh, that guy just caught me off in traffic. Yes, I'm pissed off, but I didn't blow my horn,
Right.
and I didn't, flip him the bird.
Right.
And those little victories start to add up,
Right.
and they cause a positive feeling, and that helps you to be motivated to continue the practice and to keep at it.
John, we're almost out of time. And thank you very much, by the way, for taking the time out of your busy day.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure.
Can you leave our listeners with something that they can use right now to kind of help them with whatever stress or anxiety they're dealing with in life?
Absolutely. Yeah. So just a very basic 5 breath practice. And again, the more you bring this to mind and the more you use it, the more readily available it will be to you to use in situations where it could be helpful. So you just sit. Standing is fine as well. Walking is fine as well. Lying down is fine. Whatever physical position you're in, it doesn't matter. Just take 5 deep breaths and be aware of the inhalation, how it feels on your nostrils, and then the exhalation. Be aware of where you feel that in your body. For some people, it'll be in the lowering of the chest. For some, it'll be in the dropping of the abdomen. Some people can feel it in their nostrils. Just 5 breaths alone, and just be with that. And then see where you are at the end of that 5 breaths. How has that altered and changed your emotional state, the severity of it, the amplitude of it?
The and just simply deep breathing calms you down. You don't even have to do anything else, just some deep breathing, and then it gives you time then to decide how you're going to deal with the situation that's in front of you. Uh,
Absolutely.
John, thanks very much. Eye-opening as always, and you're certainly welcome to come back and talk to us at any time. Again, all your contact information is being displayed as we speak, and we'll certainly get together again for another chat. Again, John, thanks very much for all your time.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate the work that you're doing. And yes, hopefully we'll connect soon. Take care. Have a great day.
That's it for this week, everybody. We'll be back next week with another interesting guest. Bye bye for now.